my God, Mon Mothma's apartment.
Yeah, like her penthouse. Yes.
Fabulous. Absolutely fabulous.
And apparently her salary is still good, even for an Imperial Senate, which they don't really utilize.
Gotta keep up
So,
appearances.
because I don't remember Padme's looking like that. I mean, like her house was nice, but like it wasn't Mon Mothma nice. Like, what is she doing?
Hello, and welcome to STAR GAYZ, where we're not only force sensitive, we're fear sensitive.
Yes. Um, what's new?
Not a whole lot. Andor's finally over. And I say that with love in my heart for the program.
Yeah, did you?
I did. I do.
Yeah.
It was good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I did too. I'm excited to talk about it today. That is what our episode is going to be about this evening. It's just kind of a general discussion about Andor now that the first season has officially wrapped up, and all of that stuff. So our initial reactions to it, how we felt going along, and overall what our kind of consensus on it is. Because I do see overall really positive reviews for it, which is great. But there are definitely some mixed conversations that are happening about it. So we'll discuss all of that. So, but I'm excited because, as you can see, I have a new set. And I mean, if you're listening to this only, then you're not seeing my
Picture
set,
it in
which
your mind.
yeah, but it's great. So I have a whole new setup, which is great. It's really delayed production on other things. So I'm a little stressed out about that, but otherwise, I love it. So I've been focusing on that. My daughter is sick for the second time in a row. She got like a respiratory infection and like this super annoying cough. I was like, what are
And
you
kids just
doing?
love those germs.
Yeah, gross. And now, so yesterday, she got better, everything was great. She was on antibiotics, like which she does like I will say, like she's gonna be a drinker because she was like, give me that Tylenol, give me those antibiotics, give them to me. She was shooting them down.
What's in this? I don't care.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, my son too. My son's been asking for medicine despite the fact that he's not sick anymore. And I was like, dude, go to a meeting. Um
I feel that. I feel that.
yeah, step one, admit the problem. Uh anyways, she was totally fine. And then yesterday she woke up red, like a full red rash all over her body. Like, and I was like, what happened to you?
Oh no.
Yeah. I was like, why do you look like that? And she went to urgent care. She has hand, foot, and mouth disease, which I've never seen.
What is that?
I've heard of it before, so I was like, okay, I've just never seen it like in the wild. And
Outside of containment.
yeah, and it's this awful like disease that kids mainly get. Adults can carry it, but they often don't exhibit symptoms. And if they do, they're often misdiagnosed as other things. So a lot of adults like can get it or have had it and just don't ever know. I was like, what the
So
hell?
you can be a carrier of hand, foot, and mouth.
Yeah, but kids, it's just like it's there. Like you know when a kid has it.
Gonna rock your shit.
Yeah, they get like a fever and they get like it starts with I initially thought it was chicken pox because it looked like that all over her. And I was like, and or monkeypox, which I was also very scared about. And I was like, not in this house. uh, no, ma'am. I didn't even touch her that morning. Like I looked at her and I was like, hey, good luck out there. And I like patted her on the head and I was like,
Give like the
Dad
hazmat
loves
suit from
you.
ET. Like,
Yeah. I was like, Dad loves you. I'm not going near you.
Uh,
Yeah.
I'd probably be like
So
that too. Although
yeah.
I actually really like being sick. But it's like very specific kinds of sick, or like a sick that'll land you in the hospital because I love being at the hospital. It's so much fun.
Okay. Let's unpack that a little bit. Um
So I've been in the hospital for diabetic ketoacidosis for a couple different occasions now. Loved every time. The
you're
the you
recording
know
from the hospital right now, actually.
yes, I am hooked up as we speak. No, it's I don't know. It's like you ever like I like it so much that I listen to hospital ASMR. Like I'll listen to like a pre-recorded thing of in someone's hospital room, and sometimes it helps me go to sleep. And it's kind of like within the last 10 years of my life that I thought this is really fascinating. But
Wow.
I actually really enjoy it. I think I've just accepted that as a type 1 diabetic, I'm probably going to land in the hospital a couple times in my life, so I might as well just embrace it. Um, and that's proven to be true. So I like the sterile, clean feeling, everything that kind of like feeling your body gets when they start an IV drip. It's just love it. It's so cool. And sometimes the food's not
Okay.
even that bad. Like everyone's like, oh, hospital food, but like I have been in hospital cafeterias because I used to work in one, and they have some really good food sometimes, better than what I eat at home. So
Wow.
do with that what you will. It's always a fun trip.
You just stay at hospitals when you travel.
Hmm. Airbnbs are getting really expensive, so now I just like fracture my ankle or something, and then
Yeah. No, you just don't take your insulin.
yeah, just I just leave it and
Leave
then
it.
roll the dice.
Yeah.
How that goes, or
You're
turn
like,
my
what
pump off.
what hotel are you at? You're like St. Mary's Memorial.
Very spacious, all
Yeah.
the best amenities.
Yeah, very sterile.
I also feel
Uh,
like sometimes, as a diabetic, I'm always reliant on medication 24/7. So I think I'm just more comfortable around a hospital because if something did happen, that's where I would want it to happen. I think it's
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I
slowly,
guess that makes sense, just move on in.
my whole family thinks I'm weird though, and I'm okay
I've
with that.
I've never been hospitalized, so I don't really
Oh, you
know.
gotta try it. It is the coolest.
That's I'm
If
good,
if
but
you could go in for something not quite life-threatening, but like a little more than just a trip to the
yeah.
doctor,
Okay.
you could work that into your plans next year for vacation or
Great.
something.
Yeah, I'm okay though. But I have had two parents who went to the hospital and then did not check out. If you know what I mean.
That would put a
So
damper on the experience, I would imagine.
yeah. Um, speaking of dead parents, Andor. Um,
Great segue.
let's dive into that because this dude's gonna have some mommy issues, which I would
Gonna
argue is really just Stockholm syndrome, which is a whole other
right.
thing we'll discuss. I think I'm gonna change the background though. Let's keep tradish.
Very fitting.
Yeah,
Although I did like the steps of the Disney walkway.
I did too. Now I'm just in this rubble.
I'm over here taking pictures. This is
Yeah,
great.
very good lighting here. I'm enjoying this sunset.
You still have
It's
sunset where you're at? Oh, never mind. I was like, we're in the same time zone. What
yeah,
are you looking at?
I was doing a bit. Okay. Anyways, but yes, so this week we are talking about Cassian Andor and also Mon Mothma, who I'm probably going to be more interested to talk about, to be honest. Let me just make myself comfortable against these ships.
Pop yourself up.
Yeah. Um, not as comfortable as the walkway from last time, but we're making it work. So season one, let's discuss this show because it's being regarded as possibly the ship is eating my hands. I don't know what's happening. Uh it's being regarded as probably the best Star Wars show made so far, which I think is interesting. And
Debatable.
yeah. Let me look up their Rotten Tomatoes actually, because um I think it's fascinating because I found it to be very slow,
Yes.
which I think it was intentionally. Like, it's definitely a slow burn intentionally. Yeah. It's got a 90%, 96% critic meter and an 85% audience meter.
Gosh.
Yeah, it's doing really good. And for comparison, um, let me look up The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian is 93 and 92. So it's right behind Mandalorian.
What's Boba Fett?
I'm not expecting that to be. Uh let's look. But I do think that's interesting because I almost expected it to be higher than The Mandalorian, and I think now that's actually a testament to the kind of mixed conversations I referenced earlier. Okay, so Book of Boba Fett has a 66% critic rating and a 55% audience rating,
So
which
we
is
are not in the running.
no. And I'm gonna look up Obi-Wan Kenobi. Just okay. 82% critic, 63% audience. So it did better than Book of Boba Fett. Mandalorian, I think, is still the gold standard, which is weird because I would argue that I think the Mandalorian, while it's cool, I'm kind of sick of it. Like,
I could see that. Yeah.
yeah, some of it I think it's just not that great, and I think that's also why I was kind of tired of Book of Boba Fett, because I was like, oh, it's gonna be something different, but it really wasn't. And so I hope Ahsoka at least goes in a slightly different direction, but I'm not really expecting it to, so we'll see. But Andor is a very different style of show, and things that I appreciate about it are the writing is definitely way more layered. I appreciate the dialogue way more. And there's a lot of character driven stuff, and I love that. I think that's all great stuff, and that was a strong point in Rogue One, which Tony Gilroy also oversaw, right? So I definitely think it does good in matching that vibe and really grounding Star Wars, which is weird for like an like a galactic level universe. um but well, no, let me continue with what I appreciate. So I do think it's way more cinematic than shows like The Mandalorian, for example. They don't use the volume, which they've been relying on in The Mandalorian, which is the giant fake round digital screen where they used to actually make most of their scenery. You can tell when you watch, and Obi-Wan used it too. And you can tell you typically when they're using it, because the sets feel very, very small. So all of the tactile stuff is very tight knit, very closed off, even though you can see really awesome backgrounds and things like that in there.
It's all just a really big screen.
Right. Contrastly, though, like you can tell though when they actually film on a location for those shows, which is rare. But Obi-Wan, for example, had one where he goes to the planet with Leia, and he sees like Anakin's, like a vision of Anakin standing in the desert. And I'm like, that's clearly the Southern California desert. You didn't even go that far. but, but it's clearly not the volume. Andor uses really big sets, though it does feel, I think, smaller as the show goes on, specifically with Fest, which is the planet we spend most of the time on. It's like the same set over and over again, like the same stairway, all of that stuff. I'm like, why? This is a very small town, apparently. But they actually film on location. They build way grander sets. Like, there's all kinds of stuff going on, which I appreciate, and I think it really shows. So I think maybe that's a note for Star Wars, is to utilize some of the budget for their TV stuff. They're not using it for movies right now. So, you may as well. So I loved all that, and I thought, just cinematically looked great. Writing was great. The acting is fantastic on this show.
Yes.
And that's also a testament to the dialogue they're given. So a lot of it, I agree, is very top notch. For me, though, it's just a slow burn, and sometimes it feels too grounded, like where it almost doesn't feel like Star Wars. Like I need some more Star Warsy stuff in there to remind me kind of where we're at. Um, but yeah, those were my thoughts initially.
I think a lot of fans needed that though, because like, Star Wars can seem very
Yeah,
out there and like crazy big like concepts,
yeah.
Jedi and Sith. And I was having this debate with my husband the other day because I mean he's not a fan of the show. Because he's really into the whole, good versus evil, Jedi and Sith, the mysticism of the Force
Hmm.
and all that. And I was like, yeah, but I'm sure that there is a big chunk of the fan base that really just wants, the hard facts of what's going on in the Empire, the politics behind it. Because those are
Yeah,
some of my favorite parts of like Revenge of the Sith was the politics of like, Order 66 and how the Empire formed and all of that. Um, so I definitely appreciated that part from Andor, and that it wasn't this cosmic struggle of necessarily the Sith and the Jedi, but it was more just the birth of the rebellion
right.
and political factions and how all that works in the systems on Coruscant or and across the galaxy. It's kind of a nice detachment from that other stuff.
Yeah. Are you hearing my kid scream in the background?
No.
Oh, good. He's fine. Um, so it's bedtime, I think. So, anyways, it's always a joy. Um, but yeah, I agree. I think for some people, there's like a black and whiteness, I think, to a lot of Star Wars projects prior, and where you can't see the good guys do certain things because they're the good guys, period.
Hmm.
And that's not
Exactly.
how it works. And all
And that's
that
not how the
stuff.
real world works either.
Right. So I appreciate Andor where it's like, no, like if you really think about what this would look like, I mean, really, like the rebellion's a bunch of terrorists.
Right, especially to the
Well,
eyes of the Empire who are in control
right,
and think everything is fine, to status quo.
right. And the structure they eventually end up with, you don't just get there without doing some things, and doing some questionable things. And if Rogue One is to be believed, those questionable things actually carry on throughout. Like nobody doesn't get, like they're not, it's not like they're not getting their hands dirty,
Hmm.
in this process. And so I think that gets glazed over because in the movies you have someone like Luke Skywalker, like swinging a laser sword around in the front of him, like and doing all this stuff, and but that's not really how it works. And I do appreciate that in this show, like sometimes you're rooting for some of the Imperial characters because of who they're interacting with, but also you're kind of rooting for the people that are supposedly on the good guys team. And then
Hmm.
sometimes you're really not rooting for the people on the good guys team because they're not doing stuff that you agree with. And then, you don't agree with the Empire people. And then it's kind of like you don't know which way to go, which is what actually Cassian is kind of dealing with in this
Right,
show.
because you're given all the different perspectives, like what it would look like to someone who's deeply embedded into the system that is the Empire, or
Right.
to someone on an outlying planet who really just kind of the Empire as a concept is not physically a part of your everyday life yet. And
Right.
then those who really want their freedom because they're being crushed by it.
Right. And they didn't highlight it enough, I don't think. And I'm wondering if they're going to do that in season 2. But Fest, which is Cassian's now kind of home planet after his kidnapping.
His abduction.
Yeah, which weird stuff. Um, they're a separatist planet. So during the Clone Wars, like they're not part of the Republic, which was also presented as kind of like the good guys.
Hmm.
Um, so which I think adds like this whole other layer to them, and I did appreciate that. So why can't the separatists be the good guys? Because the Clone Wars series also pointed out that one, that war doesn't make sense, and two, again, in war there isn't a good or a bad side because it's all subjective, it's all about perspective
Right.
and the beliefs that you're clinging to. And as Obi-Wan says, the truths we cling to depend on our point of view. So to have this planet who thought they were the good guys in this war lose, and now the Republic becomes the Empire, and they're essentially kind of proven right. It's like get absorbed into this system that now slowly just crunches in on their world. I did appreciate all that, which I think is what I liked about the finale. I just wish we had gotten more done
Yeah, I mean, that
in
was
this season.
probably my biggest critique of it is, while I understand that they took the time to do character development and to have all these layers, but as an audience member, sometimes it dragged like
Yeah,
forever.
yeah,
Um, I don't necessarily think it was quite as disappointing, or not disappointing, but as slow as maybe Boba Fett, because Boba Fett had all those like flashbacks, and you're like, at what point in time are we in right now? Um, this is all like current, but it still dragged its feet incessantly. For viewpoints of like a lot of action where something really happened. But I guess it's kind of like sparking the flame of rebellion, right? You're not going to get it on the first strike
right,
of the flint, right? So it's going to take a few times, then you're going to have a big ember, and then it's going to go out, and then it's going to be a roaring fire. So
right. And
it's very that.
my favorite part of the show is Mon Mothma's show. Not show. Her show.
The
Where's
show
her
within a
show?
show.
Yeah, exactly. Um, is her storyline, which I would argue we did not get enough of. And
Right. I would argue
I,
it could be its own show, not a part of
yes,
Andor's show.
I'm really more interested in her, so like this weird House of Cards, almost like kind of
Hmm.
thing that she's doing over there. Um, but it's, Mon Mothma was part of like this group of senators in the Clone Wars that were just so, again, kind of like the good guys, like what you think can't do any
Right.
wrong. And to see her decide to essentially start a war and to do all of this stuff, which endangers her family, and also do it in a way that she needs to be able to live with
Yeah.
in that struggle, because there's going to be some times where she has to make some tough choices, like her daughter, for example. And really what that looks like for her as the reality sets in on what she's doing and the consequences that come with that. So I really liked that stuff. Cassian, it's like, okay, like Cassian, like he's had a lot of trauma. Like I know him. I work with kids like him all the time. I don't I don't need this. Um but Mon is just so, I don't know, she's just such a great character.
She really is. And I think that talking about how far removed Andor story is from like the typical, good versus evil bit. I think Mon Mothma's story is slightly closer to what people recognize as Star Wars, because she's like at the Capitol. She deals with like Palpatine's policies as they're coming through, and name
Right.
drops that kind of stuff. I think a show about her stuff would satisfy that. Like, I want to be a little removed, but not so far removed that I can't recognize it anymore.
Yeah. I don't know how they would do it, but I would love to see a spinoff.
Yeah,
But
that'd be really cool.
and Genevieve O'Reilly, who plays her, is just so great. I think she deserves it. But um, yeah, the way they fleshed her out, was because we didn't really know that much about her, but
Hmm.
fleshing out like this kind of arranged marriage that she's in because it's part of her planet's custom, which is messed up. Um, and she's not loving it. And they have this kid who she's really struggling to deal with, and like her kind of like loveless marriage and what that's done to her family dynamic, plus now she's so detached because of everything she's got going on, and now like she has to embrace the custom she hates most, which is this arranged marriage, potentially to fund her rebellion as she pawns off her daughter to somebody else. um Interesting stuff. And the way that she's being followed all the time and the way she navigates that and how just stressful that is as a viewer watching it, much less her as a character. I love that. Her driver, which we knew the whole time was like listening to her. But I loved the finale where she manipulates knowing he's going to listen to their conversation to accuse her husband of
Hmm.
gambling debts, who I'm under the impression really wasn't gambling. And he's like, what are you talking about?
He's like, what?
Yeah. But now when, it looks like there's a source for her debt, in case they're wondering where the rebellion's getting the money and what she's up to. That kind of like espionage, like.
Yeah, it gives very like that kind of that espionage
Mhm.
feel and how careful she has to be about literally everything she does.
Right.
It's fascinating. Watching her bits in the show were absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. I loved it. The people I was less excited about were the people of Fest.
Really?
I love the finale. I love the way they presented the finale, but I didn't need to spend that much time with these people, and I hope we don't spend a lot of time with them going forward,
Hmm.
to be honest.
I
Especially
didn't.
because Cassian's not even there for most of the show. And then we spend so much time with these people, I guess because they know him, but we don't get to see them interact enough for me to like care that they're friends.
Yeah. For for me, I enjoyed that bit of it only because it was very opposite of like what Mon was going through on Coruscant.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So you're seeing like
That's
the
fair.
actual ramifications of those choices that are made, at this capital planet. Um, and then just to see like the everyday person. So you really got both bits of like why they're rebelling, right? You get the pressure on the everyday person, which you saw on the planet, and then you get the pressure on Mon Mothma's side, which is she's
Yeah.
more of a society elite.
Yeah.
So it really, the empire affected all facets of life and all socioeconomic peoples.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I just don't care about poor people. I'm just kidding. I think
You would
part of it
find
too.
kinship with Kim K.
I know. I think part of it too is I think even cinematically, that's just the set that I felt was the smallest, and so we're constantly like in this place that just felt very tight knit, even though I think it's supposed to be fairly large. Um,
Yeah, I could agree with that.
yeah, and I just didn't believe necessarily that the Empire would care about it, even as things are going down on it. So I don't know. But it was very moving. Whatever.
Well, I mean,
uh,
arguably, the Empire didn't care about it until a couple people who really drank the Kool-Aid and wanted absolute control, shook some trees,
that's true.
and started poking around and saying, "No, there's a problem here." And the higher ups, and the security details and stuff, they're like, "It's nothing. It's whatever. Leave it alone."
Yeah.
But it ended up being something just because they were so passionate about what they were doing for the Empire because they believed that it was the right thing to do. Um,
Yeah, I guess I can see that. Fine. Uh Fest is fine. I do really appreciate that it gave us the first Batman of Star Wars. And he was a joy to watch. I want more of him. And I can't remember his character's name right now. I'm trying to look it up. Oh man. He's played by Peter Skarsgård, though. Great actor. I love the Skarsgårds.
the wonderful
um,
clan.
they're a very popular clan of actors, and I was actually very surprised that he agreed to do this show. But I'm gonna look it up.
He's got a lot of range as an actor and does some really,
Yeah,
really unique roles, but makes them his own in almost everything I've seen him in.
Stellan Skarsgård. Sorry, hit the wrong one. Uh, um, love him. He's Pennywise's dad. Luthen. Jesus Christ, that took forever. Luthen, the Batman of Star Wars. I loved his little Batmobile ship that shot lasers.
Oh God, how cool was that?
Yeah. And I'm like, why don't they just fund a fleet of those ships? Like, done.
Right. Making things
Done.
much easier.
Yeah. They could have turned the Death Star into a Swiss cheese ball by the end of it. Like, Done deal. Um, really cool ship though. Love that. And his little robe and the way he like has a secret identity. Very cool. Um,
I like the back and forth between him and his assistant back on Coruscant. Very snippy with each other.
his voice of reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
When she's like, really?
Damn it.
when when mom goes to see them and it's only her and she's like, can I help you with something?
What are you doing
Yeah,
here?
I love it. I love that she's
It's
his
not
Alfred.
procedure.
Yeah, she's like Alfred. It's great. And I love the Easter eggs in his office. I think some of them don't totally make sense, but that's cool. Love that they're there. And yeah, like there's a lot of like little nuggets about this show that I really appreciate. I do think season 2 will be way better and way more fast paced because they're doing a lot of time jumping in season 2.
Mm.
They will still be arcs, so they'll be every like 3 episodes, or so will be an arc.
Hopefully there's just more movement within that arc.
I hope
So
so.
it doesn't feel quite so slow.
I hope so, but they're gonna time jump each arc. I can't remember if they're all the same increments, but it's like something like a couple years or something.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it'll eventually take us all the way up to, I think, the beginning of Rogue One.
Oh, neat. Okay. So you see
Yeah.
the rebellion at various different stages.
Yeah, and I think we'll get to see the event that is the last straw for Mon Mothma before she outs herself and leaves, and that's when we see her get picked up in Rebels. Yeah, so I'm assuming it'll be a lot more like big Star Wars stuff going on, and likely with bigger characters that we're more familiar with popping in, especially
That'll be
ones from
exciting.
Rogue One that we have not seen yet. So
Hmm.
yeah, and I'm expecting Luthen to die or something of the sort because Luthen right now is head of the rebellion, and somehow we need Mon Mothma to get control of it from him somehow, and then for them to form kind of a united council of rebels, which is what we see in Rogue One. Yeah, so I'm excited for it. I think so. I think it'll be better. I think season 1 is kind of like season 1 of the Clone Wars and season 1 of Rebels, where it's just so grounded and such a smaller scale story, like tighten it,
Hmm.
so then it will explode, um, and do some bigger stuff that's way more meaningful. But so I think it's one of those things where even the people that are mixed about it right now will look back on it later and be like, well, overall, because of the bigger picture, this is fine.
Right.
Um,
And this was the kind of stuff that we were talking about, like with the resources at Disney. They're able to tell all these other stories within the story that we know,
mhm,
but are also rich and really contribute and make that story so much grander as a result.
yeah,
Um, that without, I don't think any of this would have been possible. So it's really cool and really cool that we get to like experience it as it's happening.
yeah, and it gives me a little bit of hope because it's the only project not Filoni run or Jon Favreau run that's now done really well. Obi-Wan was really disappointing, for example, for a lot of people.
Hmm.
Even though I think it was mostly okay, it's salvageable. I really hope they still do a season 2. Um,
Got some really cool toys out of it.
yeah. Um, but I think people were wondering like if they can go beyond the Mandalorian verse because that's now become so far the gold standard. But I think this show is a testament that you can go and do different things and it still be very successful. And because they weren't really involved with this show at all, so I think everything's going to be fine. And I appreciate that it's not as watered down as I would argue like the Mandalorian and some of the other ones feel,
Hmm.
because not that they're not great. I love the Mandalorian and all that stuff, and I'm sure Ahsoka will be similar, but to me they feel like live action versions of the kids shows produced by Filoni. if that
Yes.
makes sense. You know
Yeah,
what I
I could
mean?
see that.
Where they're kind of still a little watered down, where this one is way more mature,
Hmm. It's a
um,
little, this one
and
was pretty
intelligent.
gritty.
Yeah, and it's got a lot of layers, and it expects people to have the kind of intelligence and desire to kind of unpack it all, um,
Hmm.
bit by bit. Where Mandalorian and all of that, it's very just like, this is what you're getting at the face. That's really all it is. That's
Yeah,
great.
it's kind of surface
But
level. It's good surface level,
right,
but surface level.
right, which is very much like the Clone Wars and Rebels. Like, it gets to a certain point because the target audience of those shows can only go so far.
Right.
And so I would argue that they kind of keep it very, very light over there. So I appreciated this. Um, so did I like it? I think I did. Would I binge it over and over again? No. Even Obi-Wan, like, I think I watched it again like a couple times, and went through it because I was like, oh, this is really, even it wasn't perfect, but I was like, oh, it's got some good stuff. Um, Mandalorian, I rewatch some points of it. Like, I'll have specific episodes I'll go through, and then other ones I'm like, I don't need this. I would not rewatch this season.
I
Once is
probably
enough.
wouldn't unless I really have the time to
Yeah.
pay attention to it again and go through all of it.
The only
I
reason I would is if I'm rewatching the entire series once we get the full complete thing.
right. I think the I think this show is a good sign that we may have an explosion of media that's made for the target audience of like Clone Wars and Rebels who are now
Uh-huh.
growing up and can stomach and digest better media in relation to the Star Wars universe. I'm really hoping that this is just the first step in that explosion of media, that we can all kind of delve deeper into different themes and layerings of these characters and shows that all have to do in the Star Wars universe.
It at least makes me really hopeful for kind of what we can get, like you're kind of
Right.
saying. And that makes me excited as a Star Wars fan. And um yeah, I think it's good to have different stuff. I'm really excited for other things like the Acolyte, I think I said that wrong. The Acolyte, which is coming up, and to see what that's like, because it's in a completely different time period altogether, which is great. There are I don't know how much, I mean, there's a lot of Star Wars rumors that float around, and then sometimes they get announced and then they still don't happen. So there's that, but there's rumors of like going back into kind of the sequel timeline for some things. Um, which I think it needs because people don't appreciate that enough. And I think it could benefit from like a Clone Warsification,
Yes.
like the prequels got, to kind of enhance some of those things. Um, but yeah, so I'm excited for kind of what this means for other projects and future things and all of that wonderful stuff. What else?
Mm, I think we've covered a lot of it. The writing really was good. That whole speech at the funeral service at the in the finale, I thought that was very, very well done. Um, and very moving. Like the writing was just impeccable.
I agree. I think that was just really good writing, really good. Did you hear that?
No, what?
It's fine. I am hearing voices for some reason.
Oh, what did they say?
Yeah, it was Siri. She said, on it, glad to hear it. And I
Okay,
was like,
mine does that all the time. I won't even be talking to her and she'll like look something up that I didn't ask for. I'm like, excuse
yeah.
you.
Where I'm a little concerned is it doesn't look like it came from my phone or my watch or my computer. So
Oh.
where did it come from?
Oh.
Like, if I take the earpieces out, will I still hear her?
She's in the wall. The call is coming from inside the house.
Yeah, this was scary. I don't remember what I was saying before that happened. Doesn't matter. Um, this show was fine. And I like it overall.
It was
I just
fine.
I just think it's a really slow start, and I think overall it won people over, which is good.
Mhm.
They were already going to make a season 2 regardless, so it didn't really matter. But which they just started filming, and I'm hoping they speed that up because I don't want to wait forever for this.
Right. I think that's another really important thing is that because it moves so slow, if they wait too long in between releases, people are gonna lose interest.
Mm-hmm. And other than 2024, maybe I don't know where they would put season 2 at in terms of premiering because they have other stuff lined up that's going to come first. And so I don't know. But I hope it doesn't take too long because I want to know what the fuss was about and why I had to sit through this. But
The point was,
yeah, and I want to know what happened to the space lesbians. And
yes,
yes,
representation.
which brings me to the question, um, what is the gayest thing about Andor?
Oh, Mon
Space
Mothma.
lesbians. Oh. Mon Mothma. Yeah, well, she's got some good fat, like Padme who.
Right? Like
She was like, Padme's dead. It's my show.
my reign just
Yeah.
started.
Which is great because they, for the most part, she's always had that 70s bowl cut and the white frumpy looking robe, which looks great. I'm not saying it doesn't look great, but
Hmm.
I'm like, but it's like her one outfit. And then she had a really great outfit in Revenge of the Sith, and her part got cut. So, you know, is
You
what
know,
it is. So
when you
now,
know that you are iconic before everyone else does, you just stick to your guns until it
mhm,
becomes fashion, until it becomes iconic.
sorry, I shouldn't be revealing this probably on the program, but I have I had hydrogen peroxide mixed with water in our bathroom. I use it for like teeth whitening and stuff because you can.
Yeah, yeah. Valid
Apparently,
oral care.
yeah. Apparently, my husband drank it.
Oh, is he okay? He?
He. That's why I've been kind of glancing at my phone just to make sure I'm not a widow.
Oh
Uh,
no. I always
yeah,
think of the episode of um Family Guy where they all drink shrimp peroxide and throw up all over the living room.
yeah. That's what he's doing right now, and I can actually hear him. I'm hoping you
Oh
all
no.
can't, but I can hear him somewhere in the building
Why did he just
throwing up.
okay, first of all, why did he just drink a random liquid? You didn't like pour it out and then
I mean, I keep it in a water bottle, so I pre-mix it like a stash, and I
okay.
use it. But let
Did
me
you mark
finish.
the water bottle?
Okay, no, but it's also like there's this much of the water bottle. He's
But you have
seen me.
kids. What if they just thought, "Oh, I want some water," and
They don't have access to our room, and it's in my ensuite.
I fucking can't.
They can't get in there. First of all, and they have their own bathroom. No. And anyways, so I have, and it's in a drawer, and he's seen me use it several times, and there's like this much left in it. So I don't know why he was like how like we have several water bottles elsewhere, especially in the fridge.
I wonder if it was like he swallowed it by accident, like he was going to like swish or something, and then
Nope,
like yeah, no,
nope,
just drank it.
nope. Um, yeah, he's yep. So a little bit of a panic as he did that. I'm glad he texted me though, in case he did perish and I had to explain it to the police. Because on the surface, yes, because it would probably just look like I poisoned. um, I'm gonna be
Thank you for
like,
that alibi.
no, really, he did not know. Uh, I didn't know he was going to drink it. And he called poison control. They said not to worry.
Oh, well, that's good to know if it ever
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
It will pass.
Just discomfort and probably throwing up. And then he was like, actually, I already feel like I'm gonna throw up. And then all I heard was through the walls.
Oh, that sucks. Poor Bobby.
Yeah, I hope he's okay. That means I don't have to remix my peroxide. No, I hope he's okay.
I'm sure he is.
Yeah. Anyway, Mon Mothma gay, huh?
Yeah.
And we
Lesbian
got
icon.
yeah, we
Fierce.
got we got so I mentioned space lesbians, which was cool. I enjoyed them because it wasn't cheap representation and it wasn't forced representation. And
Right.
I did appreciate that. I wish they were bigger characters or we at least got to spend more time with them. Because I also by the end of it, I was like, what are we paying off for this? Because we've been leading up to them reuniting and wondering, especially this one specifically angry space lesbian, who apparently loves the murder of it all. Doesn't participate in any of the other rebel shenanigans in the finale, which is her job. Just wants to stab this one Imperial that she's been stalking because he's an Imperial. I was like, what's going on there, girl?
Very personal.
Yeah, something's going on, but we don't know because they don't explain it in this season. So I don't know. And I feel like she killed the hostages from the heist in the first few episodes. So I think some stuff's going on with her. But I would like to know what that means for her and the other space lesbian, because that was built up all season, and then we didn't go anywhere. Anyway. But yeah, I enjoyed a lot of that. I enjoyed the fashions. I enjoyed the cinematography. I enjoyed a lot of that stuff. So I think overall I'm okay with this show. I think it's great.
Oh my God. Mon Mothma's apartment.
Yeah, like her penthouse. Yes.
Fabulous. Absolutely fabulous.
And apparently her salary is still good, even for an Imperial Senate, which they don't really utilize.
Gotta keep
So
up appearances.
because I don't remember Padme's looking like that. I mean, like her house was nice, but like it wasn't Mon Mothma nice. Like, what is she doing? Fuck, like my whole family's being wiped out this weekend. Oh wow. Anyways, final thoughts.
No, what was the gayest part of Andor for you, or was it the space lesbian?
Oh, space lesbians.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and I hope everybody watched the end credit scene, because for me that was the biggest payoff of the entire season, was actually seeing the Death Star. And I had anticipated that maybe what they were building in the prison was stuff for the Death Star, and it was. And I thought that was a nice tie-in. So it's kind of cool.
It's those little tie-ins that tie it into the main story and what's going on in the larger galaxy that make it kind of worth it. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And we saw Admiral Yularen, which was pretty cool. And I loved that. So it's like, I think it's like stuff like that I like. Not that I need it to be fan servicey, but even Admiral Yularen, he's not a character most people know. And he's not necessarily one they would recognize from the films.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved seeing him there. It made it, I was like, oh, this is Star Wars. You know, we're getting into some Death Star stuff, and he's part of the ISB. I was like, oh, this works all so well. This is all great stuff. And then we never saw him again. I was like, okay, cool. And then it was nothing until the Death Star. Yeah. So I hope we get some more nuggets in the next season. I'm sure we will. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Thank you all for watching, for listening, and joining us. Stick around for more episodes of Star Gaze. You can find them here on the PG Media channel. Please subscribe today so you don't miss out on anything we post. You can find social media information in the description below. Thank you for watching and or listening. Watch some Star Wars, and may the Fierce be with you.